All right, it's 2 o'clock, so we will get started to be mindful of everyone's time. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon for the third and final webinar in the series, Strengthening the Continuum, System Design, Practice, and Partnerships for Student Mental Health and Wellbeing. Today's topic, as you'll see on the title slide, is about embedding mental health and well-being throughout the system. And we have two exciting stories of practice for your learning today. And so with that, we'll get right into our content for this afternoon. We will hopefully have some time for questions and maybe a little bit of a breakout at the end, but we'll of course play that by ear based on the timing. I'd like to start with the land acknowledgement and invite you to look at the CASS land acknowledgement on this slide, or take a moment in your own way to acknowledge the land where you find yourself today. And personally, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that I work and live on Treaty 7 territory, the traditional lands of First Nations and Métis peoples. And I honor and acknowledge this land as an act of reconciliation and gratitude. And it's a beautiful day in my neck of the woods today, and I hope it is for all of you as well. Today we have just a quick set of slides where I will set the stage for the webinar. And then we are going to hear stories of practice from the team at Northern Gateway Public Schools, and then a story from Golden Hills School Division. And as I said, we'll do our best to embed reflection and discussion throughout. As I mentioned, this is the third in a series, a three-part series that we've hosted over the past couple of weeks. For participating in today's webinar as a learner and a participant, you are eligible to earn 1.5 continuing education program credits. And so please don't forget to go into your profile and add those after this webinar. Again, this is the third in a three-part series. I know that most of you, from what I see on the list, have been to all or at least some of these webinars. I just want to mention again that learning guides will be produced for all three webinars now that the third one is finished. I'll be working on those in the next week or two, and once they're published, that will be advertised in CASS Connects, and I'll also email links out to everybody who registered for any of these webinars. The outcomes for the three-part series are listed on this slide, but of particular interest for today, we're definitely looking at the concept of operationalizing mental health and well-being, within a school authority and with a systems approach. And the stories of practice that you'll hear today will highlight some really purposeful and strategic work in embedding mental health throughout a school authority so that it is becomes the way that these school authorities do business and not something separate or something on the side. So you will definitely hear that woven throughout today's stories. Last week, if you were with us, I mentioned an event coming up next week at the CASS conference. I think the day after our webinar last week, we learned that that session has been canceled. It's been replaced by another session with stories of practice, but I did just want to highlight that what I had mentioned in terms of the opportunity to give feedback on Alberta Ed's mental health framework has been canceled. So if you were excited about that, I'm sorry about that, but sometimes these things are beyond our control. And we have a lot of content today, so I've kept this introductory portion very brief. And I'm happy now to turn it over to the team, Tammy Davis, Bev Cotton, and Lorna Vardy from Northern Gateway Public Schools. And I'll let them introduce themselves a bit more and take it from here with their story of practice.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tammy Davis, and I'm one of the directors of learning here at Northern Gateway Public Schools. And we are very happy to be here today to share our journey of wellness, mental health, and diversity data. How is it being used to support and enhance quality learning environments in Northern Gateway Public Schools? So this is just an overview of our journey so far. So this started several years back. Our leadership team, our learning services team, attended a CASS conference, and we went to a workplace wellness session. And we listened to the conditions that were required in order to begin this work. This is where we got our whole plan or our idea for our plan from. So we wanted a comprehensive, integrated approach. We needed a leadership with a shared vision and commitment. We wanted to base it on evidence and research. Each person in the plan or each group in the plan needed to have their own roles and responsibilities, and we wanted a systemic uh, professional learning opportunities to be offered throughout the system. And actually, I'm going to say right now too, none of this work would have happened without the support of our superintendent team. There has been a lot of resources that were put into this work, and it's because both our superintendent and deputy superintendent supported us in this journey. So our first step was to collect the data. To do that, we teamed up with Blue Lantern. Amber Hester is a consultant that we've worked with for several years, and she has her and her team had created a survey. So we connected with her, told her what we wanted to do. We wanted to create this plan. We wanted to have the most current data possible with a wellness focus. We wanted opportunity for voice and engagement from our staff. We wanted to ensure that the data was used to inform the plan, and we wanted to have information to determine where to align our supports and resources. And of course, we wanted to celebrate what was working well with our wellness focus thus far. So in this survey we conducted, there were several different areas of focus: safe, respectful, caring, welcoming, the COVID-19 impact, mental health, wellness, system wellness, and demographics. So our first survey that we did actually was 2020. So just coming out of COVID, and yeah, and the data showed that. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Once the surveys were completed, and actually the surveys were, it was a online survey, but Amber and her team also did interviews. So they interviewed a cross section of our employees in Northern Gateway, um, from all employee groups. I think that's the important thing to note there. And so when the reports were compiled, they were compiled into employee groups and school reports. So for example, we have transportation department, a maintenance department, or our finance department. They all have their own separate report.
All right. Data analysis. Then the fun began. Basically, we established a system wellness team. It was an advisory team made up of representatives from every site, every school, every employee group, maintenance, finance. Every employee group was represented, and we did the dirty work. We dug into the data, we reviewed all the categories, looked for themes. We talked about things we needed to work on, celebrate the things that were working well. And then, Tammy, you're in control, are you, of the slide deck? Sorry, yep. There you go. That's kind of what the dirty looked like. We met, we took notes. In the second photo, you can see a number of different color of ink. That meant one group would look at it, then it was passed to another group. We got feedback. Tammy and I would bring it back. We'd go back to the next meeting with a different form to look deeper. And to cross-reference things. In between, we would meet with the senior leadership to see if we were on the right track. And so it was a long process over the last couple of years of looking at survey information, finding out what we could do about it, and then repeating that cycle, I guess, over and over 4 to 5 times each year. This is kind of what our online work would look like as we got together. For instance, we'd look at the mental health area And if there were 4 groups that day, they would start in one area, look at the details, add what they could, and then they would rotate through the next 3 or 4 categories. Then we moved to the safe strategies, did the same thing. So every employee group was represented in giving feedback, suggestions for strategies for improvement for all of the areas that came up on all of the surveys. And all of this work stemmed from our initial work with the quality learning environment that Northern Gateway has. We use this as our way of doing things. It's all focused around the learner with quality pedagogy and supports through intervention. And everything that we do is based on the culture of wellness. It used to just be wellness in general, and we had a very thin black foundation at the bottom of our quality learning environment. But through this work of digging into what wellness is, we have since grown our foundation, I guess, to look specifically at student wellness, culture of wellness in general, and that would be for all sites. And then the system workplace wellness, which is most of what our sharing with you today is about.
Nope, this is me again. So what we did is that working group or that system advisory team got together and we looked at 3 areas of wellness: social well-being, mental well-being, and physical well-being. And I actually need to back up here because when we had that real thin black band of wellness, that was like probably, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago. That was a teacher wellness group. That's how we started. We knew that if we wanted our students to be well, our teachers had to be well. So we started with a teacher group, and they came together. They actually came up with the domains of social, mental, and physical well-being. They defined it through research, and then they created a document that had supports in each of those areas for people to access. So we couldn't we started off with their work because through this process we thought, oh, wait a minute, we're missing lots of people in our organization. Yes, we need teachers to be well, but we also need our bus drivers to be well. We need our maintenance staff to be well. We need our finance department to be well. So that's when we created we didn't want to dismiss the teacher group because they were very instrumental in this work. So we kept the teacher group going. We added a system wellness group. So that included representatives from all departments. And what they did is they took that beginning list that was identified for teachers and they added to it. So if you could click on the balloon, whoever's can click on it, I can't. Thank you. And if you just scroll down a little bit. So this is on our website and it's accessible by anybody who visits our website. And if I could, sorry, can I get you just to click on physical, one of the well-beings. So in it, what we have is the domain overview. So it's basically the definition of what that domain is. And then if you click on tools and then the link, sorry, there's lots of clicking. There we go. So what the system group did then is they took the teacher information and we separated it into, resources, essential resources for teachers, for QP staff, because we have 2 different support staffs. We have those that belong to the QP and we have the non-QP support staff. So we separated the resources to make it easier access. And then we also had an all staff section. So this was more general supports that could be used by anybody in the system. And can you keep scrolling? Yeah. So, yeah, and so what they did is they looked for these supports, they looked for the links that that correspond with the support, and we tried to align it with the research again, going back to the CASS document of awareness, application, and growth. Um, so we wanted people to be aware of their, physical well-being, their mental well-being, their social well-being. So there's tools for that. And we wanted them to be able to apply. So that's where the resource bank comes in. So they can choose, look and see what would work for their situation. And then we also talk about growth and, reflection and goal setting and accountability and how do you know that these supports are actually working for you? So you can continue to scroll. There we go. Then we got talking about, there's so many resources out there in the forms of apps and audiobooks and podcasts. So we started to list, and of course you can't list them all, but we did start to list them. And then we also have a suggestion there where it says make a suggestion here for wellness recommendations, and you could win a gift card. So we had staff that, read a good book or heard a good podcast, and they would enter it into this Google or into this form. And then the last link on this page is what other colleagues are suggesting. So it was the results of what that form was collecting. So we did this for each domain, physical, mental, and social well-being. So we can go back. What we did after this, which hasn't made it to the website yet, is oops, we the group they're actually downstairs today working as we speak here, but they put together community resources. So we have quite a large division. We span over 350 kilometers from one end to the other. So we have five communities. So Onaway, well, actually more than that. Onaway area, there's Sangado Mayorthorpe, White Court, Fox Creek, and Valley View. So what they did is each community group got together and they looked at what supports were available in their specific community. So now we have a document that says White Court and what are all the things that you can do in and around White Court to support your physical, mental, and social well-being. And it also has links to phone numbers attached. So we have to find a place for that to go on the website somewhere. That's what we're working on today. So, all right. So we can go on to the next slide. I don't know where my thing went to control the slides. There they are. Oh, this is Bev's.
So while we were doing part of this work, what came also out of it is we needed to really look at the supports that we had in each of our schools, but also across the division. So this is roughly around the same time we had the mental health in pilot project grant. So we took some of the grant money and we decided to build up the supports for wellness throughout all of our division. So the first thing that we actually did is we made sure we had a wellness coach in all of our schools. We were blessed in that we had MHCB teams, but we had some big gaps in our communities where we also had, it was showing up in the data that we had some significant concerns. So we made sure that we, with other support from here at division office, that we were able to put a wellness coach into all of our schools. With that came some training that we needed in all groups. So the very first training that we did was mental health first aid. And so we did mental health first aid training, not just for anybody working in the school system. So it didn't matter who wanted to be a mental health first aid person. They were eligible. They could go and they could do it. We did 3 different trainings in our 3 main communities of Valley View, White Court, and Onaway. We had representation from everything. So we did representation from transportation, representation from maintenance, occupational health and safety, representation from EAs, from technology, from here at division office. We made sure we had somebody trained in each area for mental health first aid. We also trained some of our community members. Then we did the same with psychological first aid. And again, we went through 3 training sessions. We also offered it for our community so that we could bring in our parent voices, anybody from the churches, different things like that. It's who we opened it up for, and we did the psychological first aid. Then one of the last trainings that we did was the applied suicide intervention skills training, because we had a couple of different communities where, yes, we did lose children to suicide or students to suicide, and we knew we needed to train that a little bit more. So we brought that training here to Whitecourt, and then we arranged for the different communities to come to Whitecourt. And again, we have somebody trained everywhere, division office and in the schools, for applied suicide intervention skills training. This was also the time we went through some fires, and Sturgeon Lake Cree Nation, who sends quite a few children to Valley View, suffered the most damage. Plus, we had the community of Fox Creek. Both those communities were both on evacuation and had to move out for a time period. And so we chose to reach out to the Center for Trauma-Informed Practices, or CTIP as it's called now, and we brought in the Traumatic Event Systems training. And then again, we brought in, we had board members trained, we had representatives from all the schools and all the different departments. We also included mayors from the different communities. They were invited in, victim services, anybody that we still had here, we offered the test training, so that we have that training now that we can use as an additional support should we have any event that happens in any of our communities. And that's how we started to contribute and be a more part of the wellness. We need to go forward, please.
All right. Yeah, the workplace wellness plan was starting to become a thing. Once we had all of this data, we had to figure out what we're going to do with it. And so we did take the time to work with all groups. We met with the supervisors and directors of all the teams, admin teams from the school, different employee groups outside of the school, met with their directors, looked at the data to determine what it is that we're going to do with it, help them work through the analysis, and to establish some goals to move wellness forward on their in their sites. So yes, that was, I guess, guided by the Lipton-Wellman resource that we took lots of great ideas from. We need to activate and engage our employees to explore and dig into that data and determine what we can do about it, and then actually organize that work and put it into place, and then repeat that cycle. So this is basically a template that we would have used with our discussions with those at that admin team or those directors. Basically look at the data and not just pull out the things that you need to work on, but find the celebrations too. There are things in that survey that gave us reason to be excited and proud of the work that we're doing. And then, yes, look at areas of growth, and then specifically what actions are we going to do about it. But again, don't just talk about the action, break it down. What are some strategies you're going to actually action in order to meet that goal, set a timeline, and how are you going to know? What evidence and data are you going to collect to be able to say, yeah, you're moving in the direction to meet that goal. So this is a discussion we had with all of the school teams and different directors of other employee groups. And the what next is now, it shouldn't be what next. It's like now, ta-da, we actually have a strategic workplace wellness plan. It is going to be posted on our website, I think within the next week or so, Tammy. We have been working on it as a cycle that we will continue to update. As Tammy said, we've got a group downstairs today who one of the first links that was opened, it had some words in red and some things highlighted. That means they were in there today and said, we need to fix this link. We need to update that. So it's a continuous work, I guess, in improving what's already done, but we're really proud of this work. The analysis about the information we've received, and we will continue to receive as we do another survey.
So yeah, the goal and the ultimate goal is not to be perfect in the end, but it's to be better today. And we had to start somewhere, and this was our start. Um, we did do student surveys back in 2020 as well. We did not do as much with them as maybe we should have at the time, but we were really focused on, like I said, in order for our students to be well, we needed our staff to be well. Um, the what is coming up, let me see. Oh, sorry. I guess I didn't put it in there. So what's coming up is we did a survey in 2020. We did another staff survey in 2022, and we compared that data. And you have to understand that in 2020, not only were we coming out of COVID, but we had a significant leadership change in our division. So there was lots of anxiety and lots of things happening. We had a lot of big turnover. So yeah, so the 2020 results reflected that for sure. So we redid the survey in 2022. It confirmed some things for us, and we found some more areas that we needed to maybe focus on. And we're pretty excited that we are actually going to do the survey again after our spring break. And we are actually going to redo our student survey. So now because that data, our 2020 data is not any use to us anymore. So we want that student survey data, and I foresee using a similar process now to go through that data and work on goals for our students. And our schools do actually they are required to have a staff wellness goal as well as a student wellness goal. And actually, Lorna, just before we go to the next one, I'm sorry to put you on the spot. Can you explain a little bit about what the student wellness group is doing and um,
You bet.
about the third path and all that good stuff?
Absolutely. So I actually came into this position right in as senior leadership took over, and the survey was being done. And so we realized, not that we needed a survey to tell us, but it was, I guess, confirmed that our students were struggling. And so part of my portfolio was to come up with a plan to address student wellness throughout K to 12. Right around that time, phys ed and wellness became a focus as well, especially for the K to 6 curriculum. And so I happened upon the third path, which is something that we have since spent a lot of time diving into. We have a rep from every school site, K to 12. We meet 4 to 5 times a year, and we spent the first year and a half, I guess, really looking at that resource and trying to find ways to share it with our staff in order to support our students. And we've talked about ways that it's being used, and I guess how it is effective to support student wellness. And so it's certainly going hand in hand, because through those conversations, teachers have said, oh, this is actually not just for kids. We all need to feel safe, and we all need to be regulated and know that we belong, and so on. And so all the conditions of the third path are also being used in a variety of ways to support staff wellness at sites as well. So it's kind of coming full circle. Thanks, Tammy.
Thank you. So yeah, I was going to start this off with this presentation could never do justice the amount of work that we have put into this. This has been going on for, it's well over 10 years for sure, when we started with the first teacher wellness group. So it's very exciting to see where we are now and to actually have a tangible document that captures some of the work that we've done. Um, yeah, so our last couple of slides are just some reflection questions that I understand, Danica, that we're going to wait till the end to perhaps come back to. So yeah, that's our story. And we're continuing to write it, and it's really exciting.
Thank you, Tammy and Bev and Lorna, for your story of practice. You're right, Tammy, it's really hard to tell a journey of 5, 10, even more years in 20 or 30 minutes, but I think you did a great job of capturing the highlights of your work and the importance of wellness at all levels of your organization and how you've embedded that work throughout. So before we go on to our second story of practice, I would like to just pause and see if there are any questions from the group for the team at Northern Gateway. And we're small enough that you can just feel free to unmute yourself.
I just wanted to put in a little plug for Tammy and Lorna. They will be doing a session at the annual conference. And so I'm guessing this is a little snippet of what it is that you might be seeing at the annual conference. So huge thank you to both of you for stepping up to offer that session. And there might be people on this webinar that want to attend as well. Thanks, Danica.
Thanks, Gloria. Well, on that note, we'll move into our second story of practice. And then if we have time at the end, you'll have some time for some breakout discussion and some debriefing together and processing. But at this time, I would like to welcome and turn it over to Deb and Linda from Golden Hills School Division, and I'll let them introduce themselves and share their story of practice. You're muted, Deb.
There you go. All right. So thanks very much for having us this afternoon and for everybody who's participating. And I want to start off by thanking Tammy and Bev and Lorna for their session, because I think it segues very nicely into what Linda and I are going to talk about. Our focus is more on the student piece. And both of us, both divisions would agree that the staff well-being and the student well-being are interdependent on one another. And so when they talk about staff well-being, they're certainly doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes on student mental health and well-being. And today, when we talk about student mental health, we have similar things happening around our staff well-being. So the two are very important, and it's nice that today's session has a bit of both. And just to introduce myself, I'm Deb Nunziata, and my job is a student services coordinator. And I'm a teacher and I'm a psychologist. And so I bring the lens of both, I think, to the presentation. And so our focus, as I said, is going to be a lot on mental health in students. So, Linda?
Thanks, Danica. We're happy to be here today. So yeah, I'm Linda Tucker, and happy to say that I've been a part of Golden Hills for, this is my 30th year. So a proud Golden Hills member, former principal for several years, and now a director of learning. So I get the opportunity to work closely with Deb here in Golden Hills. So we're happy to share our story and continue to collaborate together with everyone that is watching today. So thank you.
Great. So in terms of comprehensive mental health delivery in schools in Golden Hills, the first thing that we want to do is just share a little video from our superintendent, Jeff Grimsdale.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff Grimsdale. I'm the superintendent for Golden Hills School Division. For those of you that don't know where Golden Hills School Division is, we're just east of Calgary in Strathmore, Alberta. But we're quite spread out geographically. We go up north to Three Hills, Trochu area, east over to Drumheller, and down south to Carsland. We have about 8,000 students in our school division. We have 20 schools as well as 20 Hutterite colony schools. We also have another 4,000 students that are online. And we have an educational service agreement with Siksika Nation for 155 students from the reserve to come to one of our 5 Strathmore schools. And we also have about 200 international students from all over the world. I can tell you that a lot of hard work goes into supporting mental health and students in Golden Hills. We have a continuum of service to support all of our students. It's a wraparound program that includes partnering with many different stakeholders. And social emotional learning is a key part of our education and prevention. We know that there's a direct relationship between well-being and academic achievement. I'm going to talk a little bit about our demographics. Each year, we see our population in Golden Hills grow by about 2%. However, in the last 10 years, we've seen an increase in our mild, moderate coded students by over 90%. And we've seen an increase of about 40% in our severe students. In Golden Hills, we see the school as the community connection. We see this as the natural environment for our children and youth to participate in mental health services. We work with our regional families community support services. They provide some financial funding in each of the areas to help us top up our social workers. We are also in partnership. We run an ISSP program, and the partnership is with the Calgary Police Foundation. And that has allowed us to have a mental health professional, which in this case is a psychologist in one of our schools, full-time every day to support students and families. Over the last couple of years, we've been successful in accessing the mental health grant from Alberta Education. With that money Golden Hills received, we have hired a full-time social worker to work specifically with families, with the flexibility of having the availability during the evening times to work with family schedule. Now these funds are a part of the funding manual and we continue that work. This current year, we've also added a CASS mental health classroom to one of our schools in Strathmore. While there is a cost to the school division in hiring a teacher for a small number of students, we feel that it is worth it in having the daily individual and group counseling. We've been doing a lot of work over the last few years with the development of our well-being framework. And over the last 2 years, we've created a leadership series with Dr. David Tranter, which is a relationship-based approach to well-being and achievement. The leadership series that we partnered with CRC had each of our school leadership teams, along with our psychologists and social workers, a part of this, and lead teachers at the school. So we had over 100 of our staff participate in this professional development these days over the last 2 years. Last year, we also had our professional development with our administrators group, where we did a book study with David's book, The Third Path. You'll notice that one of our school division's priorities is around well-being, and you will see in all of our school education plans that they have that in their ed plans as well. It's mostly around the condition of belonging. In our schools, you'll also see, in some of our schools, you'll also see specialized learning environments. We have some of our students that benefit from specialized programs. These specialized learning environments include our Anchors program, our Green Zone, Strive, and these programs are being fully utilized by our students. Golden Hills School Division provides a continuum of evidence-based services and programs to support the diverse needs of our learners. And I'm sure Deb and Linda will talk a little more about this, but we also have timely supports, including psychological services, counseling, and instructional coaches that are provided in our schools. Another great thing that we have going here in Golden Hills is our Connections program, that we have psychiatric and pediatric consultation with our students and their families. And the great thing about this program is we have involvement with the student, their parents, their family, as well as we have the EAs that come, the teachers that come, our psychologists that are part of it, social workers, as well as our administrators. And so it's a wraparound service so everybody knows what the goals are, and it's been very successful for us. Thank you very much.
Right. So it's important, you'll see that we started off with our superintendent, and we're going to end our presentation with our board chair, because the work in Golden Hills is highly supported from the school board, the senior administration, down to all of the staff in our schools. One of the things that was important for us in Golden Hills School Division, and I think some of the beginning of our work, was working with Stan Kuchar and his mental health literacy project, because we wanted to make sure when we were talking about mental health that we were using the same language with all of our staff and with children, students and their parents. And it's really essential when we think about mentally healthy children to know what it is that we're aiming for. So what we're looking for is students who are able to regulate their emotions and behavior, students who have healthy social emotional bonds, and who have some psychological autonomy. So they feel some agency over their life and some ability to make decisions and take responsibility for those decisions that they make. So there's a lot of semantic confusion when we talk about mental health. What's a mental health problem? What's a mental illness? What's a mental disorder? And especially nowadays with social media, you have a lot of students and their families who like to come in and they already have some ideas of what they think is going on. And so our psychiatrist, who's been with us for many years, one of the first confusions that she tries to deal with when they come in for an appointment is, what is it you already think you have? And lots of the times we start working backwards from that because they've come in and they have all kinds of diagnoses. And so we work from this mental health literacy framework, and it is one that our staff has been trained as go-to educators. And so like the previous school division, a go-to educator doesn't just have to be a teacher. It could be a librarian, it could be the bus driver, it could be a teacher assistant. It's those people who interact with children who children go to. They have that natural ability to build relationships, and kids may go and disclose some of the challenges that they're having. And so we train our staff through the go-to educator program, to be able to use the right language, have the right concepts. And then we have in our classrooms the mental health literacy program in both our elementary and junior high school programs, so that we're all talking the same language. But I always like the opportunity to just quickly go over it, because I think it's important for people to kind of understand, what is mental health. And so what you're looking at is that mental health continuum, and that idea that we all have mental health. And sometimes in our life, we have no distress or problem or disorder. Maybe we're on a holiday or we are having a great night's sleep. But typically when we get up in the day, we have events that happen that trigger our stress response. And when our stress response is activated, then we have all kinds of emotions. So we might feel irritated or frustrated or sad. It comes with those more sort of manageable kinds of emotions. And then when we talk about mental health problems, what we're talking about is those families and their children who are faced with chronic stressors, chronic events in their lives that result in that stress response being activated all the time at some level. And so that could be things like living in poverty, family separation and divorce, living with domestic violence. Any of those sort of adverse childhood experiences can create in children what we call a mental health problem. And this is where it gets kind of confusing for people, because when we talk about a mental health problem, we have big emotions. So we often will say, I'm depressed, or I'm anxious, I'm having a panic attack. And a mental health problem, the feelings associated with that are often the same as having a mental disorder or a mental illness. But a mental disorder or a mental illness is a problem of the circuitry of the brain. And you can have a mental disorder like depression and not really have any distress or problem happening in your life. Obviously, a problem can exacerbate it, but there are people we know that are suffering from a clinical depression, and you look at them and you say, well, you've got a great family and a good job. Like, why on earth are you depressed? So when individuals have feelings, when they have big feelings, there's a tendency nowadays to call that to name it a disorder, to name it an illness. And so it's really important when we look at our continuum of supports that we are understanding that most of the interventions that we have for a mental problem a mental health problem, like counseling and supporting kids as learners, are good across the whole continuum. And when we talk about a mental disorder, we're only then putting that medical lens on it. And so it's really important for kids to say, you don't have to say that you have an anxiety disorder and that does to get help, right? We can just help you with that feeling of anxiety, with that feeling of worry. And so it's just important that we are always using the right language with our students and our families. And we all know that or what we think we all know, because this changes all the time. But we do know that there's an increase, as Jeff has said, in our students that we are giving codes to, mild, moderate, severe codes. And many of those students that we are seeing in our classrooms are presenting with mental problems, mental health problems, and there's a certain percentage, depending on the disorder itself, that may actually have a diagnosable mental disorder. It's interesting to note that Canada's youth suicide rate is the third highest in the industrialized world, and I think a lot of schools are looking and making sure that they have protocols in place to be able to address that at a school-based level. So just when we talk about mental disorders, we can see these are the common mental disorders, and that the age of onset of most of our mental disorders is between the ages of 10 to 20 years old, with, as we can see here, if we draw a line, 15 years old being the most common age of onset. So of course, anxiety disorders and ADHD can start very young. Separation anxiety, we can start to see OCD in our elementary age kids. But by 15 to in high school, junior high and high school, that's when we see a big expression of children who might have a genetic predisposition to mental disorders. And so in a typical classroom, again, when we're thinking about percentages, in the general population, about 4 to 6% of people meet actual criteria for depression, and 6 to 10% for anxiety disorder. So what could that look like in the classroom? Could look like you have one student who meets criteria for depression, 2 for anxiety, 1 or 2 for ADHD. But when you see these, if you talk to kids now, you would probably have 30% of the population, if not higher, saying they meet criteria for an anxiety disorder. Are they feeling worried? Are they feeling overwhelmed? Is their stress response activated? Absolutely. Do they have an anxiety disorder? Not necessarily. So we know that part of the increase in mental health problems and mental disorders in children, as mentioned previously, was the impact of COVID-19, definitely heightened people's anxiety, worry, because it interfered with our sense of safety. We know there's a big influence of social media on our students' mental health, academic pressures as our standards keep increasing for students, economic and social factors, and increased awareness and diagnosis. So all of those things are contributing to that rise that we're seeing in students who have mental health problems and disorders. So why are schools the best place for the delivery of mental health services? Because it ensures that there's easier access and fewer barriers to care. So, for example, when Jeff was talking about us having a psychiatrist and a pediatrician in our school, when you have everybody involved in that student's life together, we are able to make sure that the whole story is being heard. And we're able to all hear the suggestions and recommendations and what role we play in putting those forth. We have many small towns in our school division, and transportation is an issue. And we're so fortunate that both our psychiatrist and our pediatrician are willing to hold clinics during the year in both Drumheller and Three Hills. And so I save the referrals for those individuals who have transportation issues for those days when they're actually out there. And of course, we make good use of technology as well for those barriers. But when you deliver mental health services in schools, you're reducing stigma, You are, I think, dispelling a lot of the myths around mental health and just people understanding that connection between positive mental health and achievement in school, that the two go hand in hand. You can't learn when you're struggling with your mental health. And one of the key recommendations in the 2023 Child and Youth Mental Health Report does recognize the essential role of schools in interdisciplinary wraparound services for mental health and well-being of students. So I think now it's Linda is going to take over.
Yeah. So as you've heard from Jeff and from Deb, we have a system in Golden Hills that is highly collaborative, and we know and have operated this way for many, many years. And so Golden Hills sets up our system to be able to support students and families in a evidence-based, integrated way. And so I'm just going to kind of walk you through what this looks like. So every school, as Deb said, in our district has this beautiful team, a team of administrators, teachers, educational assistants, instructional coaches, guidance counselors, psychologists, family school resource counselors. And this is essential because this team is a part of the culture of the school. As Deb was saying, everyone is a part of those conversations. It's a collaborative approach. And then, of course, to make this happen, we prioritize our dollars so that we can build each school with this team. And we have the opportunity to contract services when it's needed, as Deb said, our psychiatrist, our pediatrician, and then, of course, collaborating with allied health services, occupational therapy, because all of those different types of services when needed. So it's the way we set things up that make it the culture of how we do things in Golden Hills. So like many school divisions, we have a multi-tiered system of support with a focus of creating the conditions that support well-being. And so we have a tiered system, right? Universal supports, targeted supports, and of course, intensive supports. And, as Deb was mentioning, part of the importance of this is to be able to have staff, our Golden Hills staff, knowledgeable and knowing the language to use at each of these levels. So I'll walk you through a deeper dive of our tiered service delivery model. So at the universal level, right, this is our whole school capacity. So our universal supports, several years ago, our student services team did a little bit of work with Dr. David Tranter. So similar to what Lorna was talking about earlier, some of the work with Stan Kutcher and of course, Deb's leadership as our clinical supervisor helps to build our universal system of knowledge. And, we're able to then, of course, take that to our classrooms. It's a direct correlation to our classrooms. So our family school community resource workers, our, teachers who are trained in mental health literacy, our administrators who have also worked alongside for the last several years, last couple of years. We had the opportunity to have Dr. Tranter work with our system in our collaborative days. And so we've done a deep dive into his work, and it's become a part of the universal structure of all of our schools. And as we go up the continuum, our family school resource counselors offer more targeted support to those kiddos who need it. So we're doing small group work, targeted supports, whole class conversations if necessary. And then, of course, as we continue up our continuum of supports. We're able to provide more targeted individual intervention to students. So this would be our resource counselors who are, doing an intervention with our students, or this is where we're creating collaboratively as a school team behavioral, supports, or, contracts to support, what our diverse learners are needing. And then finally, at the top of our triangle is our highly specialized, most extraordinary supports required. So this is where we're leaning into our educational consultants, and psychoed assessments are being done, or we're doing referrals to our connections clinic, our psychiatrist, our pediatrician, or we're looking at doing transfers into some of our congregated specialized programs, anchors, outreach, storefronts. So the most important part of this model is that at every layer, our teams have the language, we have the shared, shared capacity to work collectively for our students, and we can meet their needs at every step of the way. So as a system, our foundation, our North Star, our system framework is powerful learning. And you can see from this powerful learning image that there are three main components: strategic instruction, authentic engagement, and connecting and contributing. And we believe, this is foundational, that all three of these work together in tandem to provide our students deep understanding. When you look at this image, you can see that connecting and contributing is 1/3 of our foundational framework. And so connecting and contributing, this is where that work with David Tranter, for instance, this is where that incredibly important mental health, relationship-based connection lives. And so, all of us believe very deeply in this 1/3 of our framework, critical, right? Maslow before Bloom. You cannot teach them until you reach them. Or as Deb would say, students are unavailable for learning. So we need to figure out how we're going to get them available. And so this is the driver, right? This is our priority, and as a system, it continues to drive the work. One of the things I just want to also mention, and Deb had said this as well, but we were in an administrative meeting yesterday, and our secretary treasurer is reviewing the budget, going through our priorities, and and as a system, from our superintendent to our secretary treasurer, as Deb said, our senior leadership team, they prioritize specialized learning. And even though there's not enough dollars in the budget to meet the needs, this is a system priority. So we've got to be pulling money from other places, but it's at the top, and it just embeds everything that we do.
Thank you, Linda. Oops. So, and part of that, just to add on to Linda, is when people ask, well, how is it that you have a psychologist in your school so often? So even in our smallest schools with a population of 100 kids, they still have a psychologist in their school 1 day a week, up to some of our largest schools who have almost full-time, and of course our ISSP school that does have a full-time psychologist. And that allows us to do way more than just assessment. It allows us to be in classrooms on a very regular basis, on the playground, running lunchtime activities, running parent groups. And when we present what we do as psychologists to the board over the course of the year, we take 2 weeks, and it's called a day in the life of a school, or a week in the life of the school psychologist, and they collect the data of all the things that they do in a week, beyond just assessments, because we don't want to measure what a value add that can be in terms of mental health just by the number of assessments that are done. And a large part of it really is elbow to elbow consultation and support happening every day for teachers in our classroom. And so when we look at our, excuse me, well-being framework, excuse me, you can see that we have our powerful learning framework and our understanding that well-being is the driver for this to happen. As Linda said, a big focus on that connecting, but also knowing students are not engaged learners if they're not regulated and they're not remembering, they're not available for learning, for academic instruction, if they're struggling with some area in terms of their mental health. And so we have two things that we look at. We have the skills that we think we need to teach students. So what are those things that will help students be well? So we want them to have self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, responsible decision-making, and most of you will recognize that those come out of CASS. So it's really important that we look at social emotional learning, and we want them to have mental health literacy. Then we also recognize that there's conditions that need to be there for this learning to happen. So we might have some great instructional practices in our classroom, but if students aren't feeling safe, they're not going to benefit and learn from these things that we're doing. And so we're trying to look at what are the conditions that support mental health and what are those skills that children need to be independent with their mental health. And I just want to take a quick second to talk about the difference between mental health literacy and social emotional learning, because they're equally important. Back when we had our RCSD, we actually did some research. We did a scoping research to take a look at what was out there in terms of supporting social emotional learning and what supports mental health literacy. And we have a lot of good social emotional learning happening, and it's very important in our schools, but it's different from mental health literacy. So mental health literacy is primarily about knowledge and understanding about what to prevent mental health disorders. It's not about how I feel right now, like social emotional learning and managing my feelings. It's more about how the brain works and when to seek help. And so the key pillars of that are to understand and maintain good mental health. And the kids learn about the most common mental health disorders and how those are treated. We reduce the stigma around mental health when we talk about mental health is health. Physical health, mental health, they go hand in hand, and kids need to understand that piece. And then we really want to improve help-seeking efficacy. So do kids know who to go to, where to go to, when they or they see signs in their friends that maybe somebody could benefit from some mental health support. So that's why that piece is important. All of a sudden, oh, there we go. Whereas social emotional learning is focused on skill building. Oops. And, something's happening weirdly with my slide here. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. Okay. There we go. So social emotional learning focuses on skill building and behavior. And it's what we do to help children and adults learn to manage their emotions, set goals, show empathy for others, make responsible decisions. And it's more about the social glue that we need to navigate daily life. And so it's very important. And one, I think, in terms of where we're headed, what we're really working on is originally in Golden Hills, we offered a lot of standalone evidence-based programs like zones of regulation, the fourth R, things that we know worked, the path, not the third path, but paths program. And now in our collaborative groups, we're really looking at how do we just embed this social emotional learning into everyday language arts, into everyday math. And Linda and I had the opportunity to watch a CASS presentation 2 weeks ago on how to integrate SEL into your everyday academic life. If you ever have the chance to see it, it was outstanding. And so that's what we're working in sort of furthering in our district. So you think of SEL as the foundation of what you do around wellness, and mental health as a very specialized layer on top. So if a student does develop some kind of a mental health clinical disorder like depression, which SEL can't fix alone, these children, these youth have the vocabulary to recognize that, to understand it as a brain-based disorder, not some kind of a flaw in themselves, and to seek the support that they need. All right. So we'll finish it off with Linda. A few more comments.
Thank you, Deb. So yeah, just a couple more slides. So yeah, it's really important that you know, we hire trained professionals who use evidence-based practices in assessment and intervention. So you have the right people on the bus, and you know, you hire well, and then you provide embedded capacity and supervision. So we're very fortunate to have Deb, you know, working very directly with our student services team, and providing that clinical supervision to our psychologists, who are found school resource counselors, but then also to provide support to our administrators and our teachers, and just the system. And so we will oftentimes you know, have updated information, updated knowledge at our administrator meeting, through our system email, through our professional development collaborative days. It's just that ongoing continuous growth and continually embedding the language and you know, that focus around strong mental health and capacity. As Deb mentioned, every school in our district has timely access to a psychoeducational assessment, behavioral, suicidal ideation, risk assessments. And, you know, and the other really critical piece of this is that at all of those layers, with all of those interventions, the folks who can perform those interventions are trained, are part of our umbrella of a system of support. So it's, you know, not only hiring well-trained folks, but being able to provide the right support at the right time. So our mental health interventions are strength-based and founded on current research, evidence, and appropriate within a school setting. So we've all had, I'm sure over the years, folks who want to get into schools and present their material. We'll get an email from a local, you know, community organization saying, hey, we'd love to come in and just give this little presentation on bullying, or give this presentation on, you know, risks, or whatever it is. But we, you know, we're very, very, we're very thoughtful and very intentional about the type of supports that we're providing. And you know, it's part of the fabric of how we, you know, how we do business. And you know, it matters to us that the right information is provided to students. And as Deb said, the gift of being able to provide these teams within our buildings is that we're able to meet the needs of kids during the day. They're most alert. We're removing barriers. You know, and the programs that we're using are mental health literacy, like Deb said, our Mind Up, 4th R paths, trauma-informed practice, right? And that's our universal support. And when we look at our individual or targeted support, right, all of our counselors are using, you know, cognitive behavioral therapy, motivational interviewing, or, you know, circle of security parenting. So it's all vetted, and it's all a system that's well, you know, well taken care of. So the implementation of evidence-based protocols for responding to urgent mental health situations, like we said, you know, we have the right people in our schools at the right time, and we're able to provide, you know, suicidal ideation. There's a specific protocol that we're trained in and that we follow. Non-suicidal ideation, comprehensive school-based threat assessment. You know, we use the SAVERY for students that are youth that are at risk. And as Deb said, over the years, we've had the opportunity to participate in different research projects through the university or other community collaborators to make sure that we know that the tools that we're using are quality, are doing what they need them to do. And this just ensures our fidelity and continuing to vet the different tools that we're using to support kids. Like all school divisions, data matters, and we use data to inform our processes and decision-making. We use a variety of different tracking tools, so our dossier system, our feedback surveys, and this becomes a part of how we do business in Golden Hills. As Jeff mentioned at the beginning of his little presentation there, part of many of our education plans is the evidence as well that, this is embedded in schools' 3-year ed plans. And so we use that evidence to continue to feed forward and just continually improve what we're doing in Golden Hills. And as we wrap up, we just want to, say that we know, obviously, there's not enough dollars to do all the things that we need to do, never enough money to have all the support. So we have to think creatively. We have to continue to look at ways to improve our system. And as Deb mentioned, back in the day when we had that RCSD model, it was a nice opportunity to come together cross ministry, working collaboratively as systems. So we don't have that anymore. So we are forced to think creatively and do things in unique ways. And so, it's part of the work, it's part of the story, but we're really proud of the system that we have in place in Golden Hills and have for many years. We know that as we move forward, one of the areas we want to look at, we're seeing an increase in this, is the role of our family systems and, the work of engaging family, engaging community a little bit more, and how do we build that capacity and partner together, because our things are just becoming more complex. So that will be some of the work that we do moving forward.
And before we watch Lori, our board chair, just quickly want to give a very, very fast example. So I've got 2 of my provisional psychologists right now decided they wanted to run an anxiety intervention, and they wanted to use a very evidence-based intervention called Coping Cat. It's been around for many years by Dr. Philip Kendall, and they weren't quite sure how to operationalize it within a class or within a school. So they sent an email to Dr. Kendall, and he kindly ended up spending several hours virtually talking about what it could look like. But they have a huge parent component, because in this group of kids who have anxiety at junior high, one of the parents has agoraphobia, other parents have identified anxiety challenges, and so they work both with the parents and the children as part of this program. And so we realize that most mental health challenges occur in a milieu. And if we can't start finding creative ways to involve parents as part of the treatment and intervention, then we're not going to necessarily get the outcomes that we're hoping for. So we're really excited about some of the parent projects and programs we have happening right now. And finally, just a quick message from our board chair, Danica. Oh, no sound again.
And now grandparent. Hi, my name is Lori Huntley. I've been a parent and now a grandparent of children attending Golden Hills School Division schools. I was a teacher and a school administrator in Golden Hills for over 30 years, and I'm currently serving in my 3rd term as a Golden Hills School Board trustee. I can bear witness to the dedication of our senior administrations, previous boards, and our highly skilled student services teams over the years in supporting and promoting mental health in our school division. I've seen over time how the complexity of mental health challenges in our society has increased exponentially, and I'm proud to say that Golden Hills has stayed current and focused in providing effective proactive supports, and safety nets for our students and our teachers. I have witnessed students with immense personal mental health challenges become successful students and positive community members. As an example, as a teacher, I was given opportunities to sit around a table with a student experiencing significant challenges, their parents, an educational psychologist, a psychiatrist, and other school support workers to discuss how we as a team could make the situation better for everyone. As a teacher, I felt supported. A plan was created to help my student be more successful. Connections were made outside of our system for parents. I guess you could call it one-stop shopping for mental health support, but it was truly powerful. All of this comes with costs to our system. Our school board, in our governance role, has and will continue to support teacher and student well-being through developing effective policies, making it a priority in every budget, and advocating to government and other stakeholders for the support that is needed financially. Why? Because mental health matters. Kids cannot come to school and be ready to learn if they're struggling with significant mental health challenges. Teachers cannot teach effectively unless they have the skills and support necessary to deal with their students' needs and their own personal and professional needs. Parents cannot be effective educational partners unless their mental health issues are understood and supported. And schools are the ideal place to do this work. We can make the connections and provide the services. We provide spaces where our trained professionals can work alongside our students and teachers on a daily basis, and parents can be invited in to work as a team. It's hard work, but it is working. And it's never been more important than now. So we will continue to make connections, collaborate, and innovate to meet the needs of our students and teachers now and in the future, because mental health matters.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danica.
Thank you, Golden Hills. And on that note, I'm going to just stop sharing and see if there are any questions or comments for either of our presenters today. Okay, well, I think on that note, given the size of the group, and I know we've got some people who've messaged me that they have to sign off here, I'm going to elect to give you the gift of 11 minutes of time in honor of the theme of wellness. And remind you that learning guides for all three webinars will come out, and those will include all of the reflective questions that we maybe didn't get a chance to attend to today, as well as summaries of the presentations and links to the recording. Those are great tools to use back in your school authority with your teams as discussion guides, etc. And I wish you all a great rest of your week. And just on behalf of CASS and the participants today and all of those who will watch the recording in the future, thank you so much to our presenters today, Northern Gateway and Golden Hills. If we can just give a little virtual round of applause to all of those people. We really appreciate the time and effort you took to share your stories of practice with us today. So I wish you all the best. Take good care. Thank you.